Welcome to part 3. Hopefully we can get this thing back together now. So the next thing we're going to address is the actual drum on the wheel. We're just going to clean it up. I'm just using some 600 paper here, just giving a nice rub, check there's no rust or raised areas anywhere, and then afterwards just use a standard brake cleaner. We use this because it dissolves completely and leaves no trace of anything behind. So then we'll give it a wipe. Get rid of all the muck that you can. There you go. Right. Should leave no residue at all. What I'm going to do now is address the actual brake shoes. Okay, so now we're going to rebuild the brake drums themselves. We start off by taking the two posts, the two cams that go through there. The first thing we do is put plenty of grease on these, trying not to get any on the actual inside, because we don't want any oil inside if we can help it. So that goes into, it's well and truly covered. That goes into there like that, and the other one plenty of oil on there, and that goes into the other hole there like that. Okay, so okay, now we're going to put the brake shoes on, and there's a round and a square face. As you can see, the round one goes off the round post, obviously. You turn the cam so it's flat. That goes on that side, and on the other side we just do the same again. There you go. So there, it's actually held on now by the cams and the springs that go in between. So the next thing we do now is we go towards the actuating levers. Okay, so the first thing that happens is each cam has got a rubber O-ring which goes over the top, and then there's a washer that goes over the top of that. Same for the other side, and a washer over the top. Okay, now replacing the actuating mechanism, there is an inside and an out. As you can see, the inside's a bit rough and it's got printed letters on it, etc. So you want the smooth sides on the outside. First the spring, which has got this square bit on here, that goes around the arm, and that pin there goes in the hole situated there next to the cam. So put that in. With regards to position of these, what I do is I use this cable receiver here as a guideline, and basically you want it to be at right angles to that. Now, having said that, the front and the major one, that's this one here, needs to be leaning slightly forward like that. And this one goes on at the back. Now this is adjustable here. I'll show you how. There's a locking nut there, which we undo, and for that it's adjustable, the length of the bar between the two arms. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it so there's a bit of play in them. Okay, undo the lock nut and just move it so they're closer together. Right, so we've got to make sure that this spring goes over there like that. Now there's a little pin on the back there that's got to go in. So there's the flat on the bottom, 90 degrees. This is slightly in forward because they say when the cable is connected it needs to be past the 90 degrees or 90 degrees on it, otherwise the cable is just pulling itself. It needs to be forward so that it's pulling the lever and not the cable. So that to me is slightly forward. I'm quite happy with that now. So I've positioned those, the washers are on, everything's ready. So now all we've got to do is knock them into place. But as you're tapping it down, just remember that this spring has to go into the hole. So make sure that's in first before you knock it all the way home. So that's down. Now if you get some resistance, don't go mad. You can actually open the here just by wedging them apart a bit like that. Just knock it home. Okay, now as you can see the cams are nice and tight and in there, and that's the way we want it to stay. So what I do is I use the nut that holds the axle together. It's got a hole in the end, so I just put it over the end of the cam, position it right and hammer it home. There should be a little bit of the splines protruding, that just to show you that it is actually up. So I'll do the same with the so when it's all down, that's how it should look. The spline should just be proud of the arm. That way you know that peg is tight in there. What you don't want it to do is to be slightly in, because what happens is it goes in and it catches on the wheel. So now that's safely in. Okay, now the arms are in place. We put a bolt through to pinch the arms to the splines. One on that side and one on that side. They both come in from the same side. So okay, then we tighten these bolts up nice and tight, so that's now pinching that cam, and the same this side. That's got that side pinched as well. Okay, so right, now we're ready to put this back on the bike. So okay, you're going to reattach the axle and the drums to the front wheel now. Okay, so the first thing we do is we take the axle. So the first thing we're going to do is smear this in grease. so it's nice. And so that goes into the hole. Just taking the excess grease off and passing it over. So okay, there's the axle has now been threaded in, so that then goes into the hole like that. There we go. That then goes on. So now this will give you an idea. That, see that, when that pulls, that won't turn, and that's the braking mechanism, obviously. And then turn the wheel round. Add a bit more grease. There you go. And then we get the other side. It's already been prepared, and that just slides over the hole, over the axle, and the shoes go in there. So again, if you pull that, you can see it locks it in place. Right, and the last thing that goes on is the nut to hold it all together. Now you need to look in your manual to get the torque. This has to be torqued down, it's quite tight. Just take the excess grease off. Okay, so that's that back together. So the next thing to do is to adjust the brake so that it works to its maximum. Now what is required is that when this brake shoe touches the drum and therefore starts braking, we want that one to be touching that brake drum at the same time, and it's all governed by this bar here onto the length. So what we do to adjust it is to lock the drum so that that is now holding it, and we make sure there's no play Now the way I do this, right, is I pull it tight like that and use my finger on the cable guide, and sorry, my thumb on the cable guide and my fingers on the actual lever, and hold it tight. So that is now locked on the drum there. So we need to check to see if there's any movement there. Okay, so the looser this bar is, I'll make it loose so that I can demonstrate. See how the mechanism is all loose, right? You need to undo that bit by bit until that's tight and there's no play in it at all. Now when this starts touching there, you'll feel this start to push away. So then you know you've got it in the right place. So it's just starting to do that now. When I turn this to extend the bar, it's pushing this bar back that way. So what I need to do is just gently bring it back slightly and do up the lock nut to lock it in position. Okay, so that bar now, when that's touching that drum, that's touching that drum. So because I've adjusted this, and that's all there is to adjusting the brake itself. Okay, so that's it. That's how you strip down, clean, refresh and put back together the 4LS.